Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every day on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions of the show are available through Spotify or wherever you pick up the audio version of the show, you will find us there. And this is, your Monday mashup. We are back with a bang. Plenty to talk about. International break is over. The mashup is back. Joining me as always, my brothers on these shows. The consistency is still intact. Ian, the podfather of the network. How we doing, Ian?
I have to, I'm definitely going to get sued from Conrad Thompson if you keep calling me that. But as long as it's not coming from my mouth, it's okay. I'm good.
And another belter of a shirt tonight as well. Love it. Representing. Also joining me, my brother on the previews as always and on the reviews. Darren, how we doing?
Evening, gentlemen. How are we?
The big dog is in the house.
Ho, ho, ho.
Let's get into this. Anyway, let's run down first of all quickly through the Premier League results and comment a bit on some of the matches, and then we'll get straight into the man behind us. That's the hot topic at the moment this week. Let's start off. Ian, lunchtime on Saturday. Absolutely fantastic performance against Leicester. Absolutely dominant throughout the game. What a goal by N'Golo Kante.
I expected a performance, of course, because we're top of the table, but good Lord, I mean, you talk about a whitewash and then 3 disallowed goals on top of it. This game could have been 7 or 8-0 easily. Tuchel obviously worked on the troops during the international break, and, the players that came back worked on them. Without any of the strikers up front, it's a scary thing, isn't it? That, you have N'Golo Kante shooting outside the box on his weak foot now and scoring belters. Look, it was a phenomenal performance. I believe Robbie Savage picked Thiago Silva as his man of the match on the live game. Rightly so. That lad is just like a fine wine. I'm sure Darren will agree. He's just absolutely fantastic. Everything you want in a defender. And obviously, the three at the back really helps a player like him not have to do much running, but just focus on what he's good at, and that's reading the game. And then you have
he's marshalling that defence, isn't he?
Yeah, you have the 2 young bucks down beside him, Trevor Chalobah getting the nod ahead of Azpilicueta and Christensen. I have to say, Tuchel's man management and his squad rotation is second to none, to be honest with you. Really is second to none. And then fantastic to see Captain America come back from that injury as well and get himself a goal and look very, very sharp up front. But one player that I was really happy to see have a really good positive game was Hudson-Odoi. Was kind of keeping his good run of form up as well. So, yeah, it's all gravy at the moment over at the blue side of London. The only side of London, should I say.
Absolutely. I was so impressed as well with the fact, Leicester had no shots in the first half at all, which is so impressive for a team that Rodgers normally sets up as so attacking. And with Rodgers being linked with the United job, that went downhill very quick after some of these recent performances. Let's move on. Darren, Aston Villa 2, Brighton 0. Potter still in trouble. 6 games without a win. Stevie G getting off to a winning start, even though 2 late goals from Watkins and Tyrone Mings.
Was that new manager bounce, wasn't it, Niall?
Very much so.
It looked
That's
like
all it was.
That was one of those. That was one of those games. I thought there was going to be very, very little in it. Obviously, I had me 6 draws at the 3 o'clock. So we'll get to them later, I suppose. But that for a long time that looked like I had 0-0 written all over it. And then Villa then was in fairness to him, Gerrard made a couple of good changes. And really changed it up. They brought Bailey on and stuff like that, got a bit more width into things, and they were able to pick them off. Then it was good. They played very well, Villa, and they looked a little more Villa-like at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Burnley 3, Crystal Palace 3. Cricket score. Goals from me, Wood, and Cornette, and then 2 goals from Christian Benteke as well in the game was quite a shock, let's say.
And another Chelsea loanee, Mark Guehi. And the reason I call these lads, the reason I call the likes of Tomori and Guehi and all these guys loanies, and same with Livramento from Southampton, is because it's just so genius the way Chelsea got around it. The loan system now, we can only loan a certain amount, so they sell them at a good price and buy them back for about 10 million more than if they're good or not. and Grahey stepping up, and obviously my boy Conor Gallagher coming up with another assist.
Yep.
It was good to see Benteke back in the score sheet for the first time in 100 years, isn't it?
No. Can't stand them.
Big shout out to me boy Maxwell Cornet and Conor Gallagher. Brought them both into my fancy football team. Did the business. Thanks, lads. Love you lots.
Yep.
Happy days.
Absolutely.
Happy days.
Let's move on. Another cricket score. Newcastle 3, Brentford 3. Not quite the new manager bounce, but of course Eddie Howe had tested positive for COVID and had to isolate, so he wasn't there. But some decent goals in this. Tony's goal was excellent. Your man Henry. Lascelles with an OG, which was just a moment of madness. It was crazy. Also got on the scores sheet. And then Joe Linton actually popping up with a goal. And
Joe
Sam
Linton's was a good strike. The Tony one, that was the keeper, was an absolute howler for the Tony goal.
Yeah. And then Sam Maximin got a lovely goal as well.
Yeah.
I think, and I know we've said it before, and we've kind of bounced off each other about that. Like, I think he could be outrageous in a good football team. St. Maximin. He's like a human highlight reel. He really is, you know.
He's in that. What's the kid from Wolves? Traore. He's kind of one of those, isn't he?
He's Traore with a finish.
He's Traore.
That's what I mean.
That's
what I mean. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Let's move on. Norwich 2, Southampton 1. This was a shock to me, especially with Shay Adams giving them the lead, and then Pookie and Hanley pulling it back. But again, another new manager bounce with Dean Smith.
Yeah.
Well, you see what happens when you play Billy Gilmore in your central fucking midfield. Absolute lunatic, that last lad. Whatever his issue was with the Scottish Javi, fucking Egypt.
Scottish Javi.
That's what the Scots call him, Darren. Not Chelsea boys.
Keeping it real of a Monday. I love it, you know.
One for you, Darren. Watford 4.
For captain.
Darren, Watford 4, Man United 1.
Sorry, lads, it's breaking up. What did you say?
I said Watford 4, Man United 1. We've done a little on the United report. We've done a little podcast this evening. You know, it'll obviously be out tomorrow, maybe even later on this evening. And I threw in my controversial moment, which I thought was controversial. And until I threw it out, and the two boys agreed with me, so I'm going to throw it out again. Harry Maguire saw red, knowing it was going to end Solskjaer. That's what happened on Saturday. He had 2 yellows in 7 minutes. It was absolute petulance. He knew he'd walk. He knew he'd be beaten, and he knew Ollie would be shown the door. Why would you think that he'd want Ollie to be shown the door?
Because I think they were all sick of it, to be honest with you. I think, you know, from inside and outside the camp, you can see things weren't working. And as much as like guys might have been trying and might have been doing this and that, like there's obviously big issues when you're going out. Whatever about losing the City in Liverpool, you can lose to them any day of the week. They can always turn you over. When you've had performances like we've had against Villa at home, against Watford away, like the Champions League games, we've been absolutely blessed to be anywhere near the top of that table in a mediocre group. You know, so like the guys in the squad, they've got to feel that. But Maguire,
I'll hold my opinions because obviously we're going to talk about it later on as well. So we won't talk too much, I suppose, on the squad thing and all that, and kind of. So that'd be a good talking point, actually.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. That's it's an interesting slant on it, all right. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Wolves beating West Ham 1-0 again. Kind of a shock for me, Darren. I think you called it a draw, didn't you?
I called it a draw, but I did say I felt like West Ham could be beaten after the big high of the Liverpool result. I think I went with the draw in the end, but I did mention that, you know, I felt like Wolves might be able to pick them off. I just feel it happens with teams when they have such a big performance. It takes so much out of them mentally and physically. And then you get that kind of a lull when you have to go away to Wolves the next week. Yeah. And if you're not at it, you know, Wolves are going to do you in like a kipper.
Yeah. And great to see Raul Jimenez back on the score sheet as well after what his
100%.
Another goal, yeah. He's really doing well at the minute.
We rounded out the Saturday evening with the Liverpool 4, Arsenal 0. This to me was kind of, and I mentioned it in the match reaction as well, was kind of a shock, but not kind of a shock. I expected a lot more from Arsenal with the run that they were on, but the gulf, I've said it on a couple of episodes now, the gulf between Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City and the rest of the league is unbelievable. The difference is just unbelievable. There's literally 3 teams in this league now by the looks of things, and everyone else is just taking part. And you're seeing it there with Arsenal on such a good run. And we were coming off the back as well of 2 really poor results against Brighton and West Ham. And we absolutely dominated them and butchered them. Great goals from Mane. What a goal from Jota, putting the boy on his backside and the keeper on his backside. And to be honest with you, Ramsdale was their player of the game. He was absolutely man of the match. This could have been 7 or 8-0 only for Ramsdale.
He was outrageous, and they lost 4-0. He was unbelievable. Fair play to the kid. He's really, really proven his worth there for Arsenal. I know,
quality.
He doesn't get the plaudits, or they don't get the result they're looking at on Saturday, but they were immense. The one thing I just want to say about that game, if Mikel Arteta had been watching the United-Liverpool game, he'd have noticed it was a really bad idea to try and play out from the back. Because every time United tried it, we got picked off. Liverpool picked the ball up high up the pitch. They pressed, they pushed, and they scored. 3 weeks later, he goes to Anfield, and the exact same thing happens. And I'm looking going, please tell me you're not trying to do this in Anfield.
Darren, that's a good point. That's a good point, Darren, because I was looking at, obviously we went away to Anfield, and obviously with 10 men still got the 1-1, which was nice. But before the 1-1, obviously we were kind of pretty much dictating the game. I'm sure you'd agree, Niall. But I think based on your point that you made earlier, Niall, it's only really those 3 that can kind of play that way against each other, isn't it? As in, like, playing out from the back, because they have the players, they have the system to do that. And it's like the others are trying to mimic and copy what those 3 teams are doing. Like, that Liverpool will play out the back against Chelsea, but do it in a kind of a way that they're not going to put themselves under pressure, and the other team kind of respects what they have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not an arrogance. Some of these teams, like Darren, that was a great point. Like United and Arsenal going and having the balls to try and play that way when it's not their natural game. It's not their natural system. To play against Liverpool, who know that they can ping a ball out to the wing if they want, or play through the middle and just pick you off like that. That's actually a really good point. I've noticed that.
There's merits to try, and we've seen what happens when you can get past the press. But to get to that stage, you've got to be so good with the ball, and the ball has to move at a certain speed, and it's not something that the likes of Lindelof, Maguire, Ben White, Gabriel do. So don't put your centre backs in.
Yeah, it comes
centre backs in a position where they're trying to do something that they're not capable of doing.
Yeah, it's arrogance from the 2 managers, though, thinking because we're Man United and because we're Arsenal, we should be able to do that, and that's not really the method to instill, isn't it?
It really comes down to 2 things. It's one, it's the confidence in the players that are there, and it's the coaching and the drilling day after day after day. That level of coaching that you're at, that you're not going to get in those other teams, no matter what you put in there. And I think it's the quality of the player, the confidence in the man beside you, the confidence in your keeper, and the level of coaching. That playing out from the back is drilled and drilled and drilled on a daily basis, because you can see the pattern. You see the way Chelsea and Liverpool and City do it, and they all do it the same way. There's no difference in the way that they approach it.
They move in tandem. They move in tandem.
It's like a unit.
I watched. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
There's a really simple fix as well, because with what United were doing was they split the 2 centre backs, right? And the 2 centre backs came into the 18-yard box, the 2 sides of the 18-yard box, right? Now, the purpose of them going there isn't to get the ball; it's to create space for the midfielder to come down the middle of the box and take the ball and open out and play it that way.
Yeah,
but no, we play the ball into the centre back.
The spaces then, yeah.
Right, but we play the ball into the 2 centre backs, and then they can't make the pass to the fullback because there's no angle, because they're on top of the guy. And when the space is closed down and they pick the ball off up at the fullback position, you're straight away in a massive at a massive disadvantage, because there's also the width of the 18-yard box between your 2 centre backs.
Plus, it's vital that you have that link-up man as well. You have to have that Fabinho or that Jorginho player in there.
I was going to say there, Fabinho. I was watching Fabinho there. When you like when the like, and I think Liverpool's front three are actually probably the best in the world at it because it's so familiar to them now at this point that they've been together for so long, and you can slip a Jota in there as well. He knows what his role is. Like, you notice once you give them an inch, they're like a shark. Once they smell blood, they're like a shark, and you'll always see that just very, very closely to that front three when they're doing that press. You'll always see a Fabinho or a Jordan Henderson, depending on which one wants to go. They're there just to watch out any of the passing lanes. They're there to cut the passing lanes for the opposition.
After the match the other night, I went and looked at some of the statistics, and Liverpool so far this season have 74 steals from that final third. And the nearest steals. Yeah, and believe it or not, the nearest to them is 46.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was expecting, when I looked at it, I was thinking even City and Chelsea must be pretty up close near to that. But apparently the nearest to them is 46. But I mean, you'd have more of a patience in your play.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you had this moron Pochettino coming out calling Chelsea a counter-attack team, which I thought is absolutely hilarious. A defensive team, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I mean, that's obviously why he's a chancer as a manager. Like, when you look at it, it's a little bit different. Chelsea kind of do, they have counter-attack elements for sure, but there's a patience in Tuchel's play, which is very old school German and old school Italian, but it's possession based and it's quick football. It's not counter-attack. It's not let the opposition have the ball and we sit back.
No, it's the opposite way around. It's never give the opposition the ball. Yeah,
no,
100%.
We control tempo, but Liverpool are the best team in the world, in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this. At the hounding, do you know what I mean? Those front three, and listen, there's always cases. It kind of went against us at the Chelsea match at Anfield, because that's where you could see the spaces. But it takes a very special team to do that. And look, you could play that game again, and it doesn't work in Chelsea's favour, and it works for Liverpool. So it's a flip of a coin with that. When you're dealing with the elite teams like that,
which makes those games against each other so exciting.
Of course,
it's a tactical masterclass, really, you know, between both.
And on the day, it depends, you know, who shines show on the day, like, you know what I mean? So, I think that doesn't surprise me at all. As I said, Salah is a master of his art, and so is so is Bobby Firmino as well when he's on point. He, as you say, he's not a centre forward, and I like to tease you saying that he doesn't score enough goals and stuff like that. But you know, when you actually look at what he does within that system, it's vital. You know,
so absolutely. Let's move on to Sunday. The 2:00, Man City 3, Everton 0. Goals from Sterling, Rodri, and Bernardo Silva doing an absolute number on Everton. Could have been a hell of a lot more.
Disappointed for you and me, right?
But Sterling, I mean, in fairness, Sterling was on fire on Sunday. He could have had a hat-trick, in fairness. And Everton again with no win and 6 as well. Benitez with a lot of work to do there. Looks like they're really struggling. Can't find a goal at the moment with Calvert-Lewin being out and all. So
they need to invest in January, don't they? Because they have the money there, so it's just a matter of you know who they can get in that fits. You know, what is Benitez's system at the moment? You know what I mean? That's kind of what is it to stop these top teams playing? Because we know Rafa can be a little bit Mourinho-esque. I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's hard to know what his system is at the moment because there's a number of players there who I would regard as being good players, the boy Dina and all at the back and stuff like that. But they're bang out of form at the moment, bang out of form at the minute. So it's a struggle at the minute. And when Everton are there, they need their players performing in order to get results because, you know, the drop off is really significant. There's no middle ground with Everton, really, you know.
It is.
Interesting one in as well to round out the weekend. Spurs 2, Leeds 1 after going one behind to Dan James, or Daniel James now, because he was Dan James at United, so maybe he doesn't want to be guilty by association. But 2 really good goals by Hallberg and Reguilon. Interesting not to see Kane on the score sheet, but he had a number of chances. But Conte again, if you're seeing him rallying up the crowd and stuff like that and all, he was back to his Antonio Conte way.
Yeah, it's like 2 of my least favorite teams on the planet. But obviously, I would have been hoping for a Leeds win because they're kind of lesser of 2 evils. I mean, look, it always hurts with Conte. Like, you know, I'll say I hate Conte, but the thing is, it's it's more of a you hurt me, man, than a hate. Look, we knew that Conte would do this. He's getting those wins that Tottenham need. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised, as I said, if Tottenham go on, you see them in a cup final or something, and see them possibly picking up a trophy with Conte there this year. Really wouldn't be. Yeah, probably win the what's it? The European Vans Trophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it is. It's Leeds. They just set themselves up. It's going to go either way with Leeds, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're gonna get the win, but I mean, Leeds are a very different team this year. They've been figured out, I think, and it's the worst kind of team that they could have come up against because Conte will just sit there. That's proper counter attack in his style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm looking at Lanes, and I spoke about it with Darren a few times as well. Bielsa there is using up a bit of his good nature that's there with the club, really, isn't he?
Yeah,
they're on a serious slide with this second season syndrome, you know.
He's there on merit at the moment, to be honest with you.
I'd be very, very worried as a Leeds fan right now.
Yeah, me too.
Immensely worried. I don't see where this goal is going to come from. And, you know, they look so poor. Obviously, James got the goal yesterday, but, you know, even in a lot of the play that they had, they still struggle to create chances, to carve out genuine opportunities. Yeah. And I even think if they do get genuine opportunities, maybe not the guys you want in there to finish them off.
I just think they've been figured out. As I said, I think with the managers that are available there now at the moment, that would be at that kind of level. I would have thought a Gerrard or a Lampard or someone like a Dean Smith or whatever would be perfect for them if they did decide to pull the trigger. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a nice young squad there where they can change the system up a little bit. They've kind of, you know, fresh ideas and stuff like that. Yeah. I know Lamps didn't go for the Norwich job for whatever reason. So look,
I think the Leeds job would be a great job for Lampard.
Yeah, me too. I'm just thinking about it now.
And I spoke about it with Niall. I don't think he's a fit everywhere just yet.
No, but he's a fit there, definitely.
But I think based on what he did with Derby and with that young, kind of hungry squad, I think he's a sell at Leeds, you know, and I think he comes in at Leeds and I think the fans get behind him. I think maybe the board get him one or two players in the door, and I think he could do okay with that Leeds squad. I really do.
Well, he'd have those links with Chelsea, wouldn't he? With some of those kind of youth players that you could loan out. Do you know what I mean? And you know, players that he would be well aware of. Getting Morris in, who has history at Leeds as well. Morris, don't forget, was.
Here's a question for you: would Leeds be in a better position with any of the Mark Gahey's, Conor Gallagher's, Livramento, Ambrosius? Absolutely. Definitely. So that's the type of market that they could tap into with the likes of Lampard. And that's not to mention, you know, the likes of Lamptey, who's obviously gone to Brighton and stuff like that. There's enough in that Chelsea. There's enough in the Chelsea basement to keep a team like Leeds in good shape, you know. There really is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure from a confidence point of view at the moment, it's difficult for them because they're walking onto the pitch now and at kickoff, they have to score at least 2 goals because they're leaking goals like crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Your man Bielsa's time is up for me now, to be honest with you. I think the love in is finished. I think it's been found out. It's not a viable way of playing football in the Premier League and expecting, you know, results on a weekly basis. And I think, to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of Leeds, as we know, but their fans do deserve more. Like we talked about, the Newcastle fans deserving more. The Leeds fans definitely deserve more as well. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to go down, but I think if they keep Bielsa, you could be looking at a bit of a dogfight.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortress Ellen Road isn't looking like a fortress at the moment. Anyway, that's for sure.
No.
Main event time.
Yeah, that's the roundup of the Premier League action there for the weekend. So some great results and plenty to do, but certainly the league table is shaping up. Let's get into the hot topic of the week. I mean, normally I'd have a number of hot topics on this, and there was a few things we could have spoke about, but I wanted to dedicate this section solely to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because
you wanted to push more misery onto me. That's why.
No. Because if you look at how I laid it out, I was actually quite fair in the way I topicked it out. If you've seen what I sent out today.
I'm just a guest. That's all I can say.
You're never only a guest. Don't even go there. But yeah, a terrible result at the weekend. But there's been a string of terrible results, and you know, you hear different stories going around. He should have been sacked at the Liverpool game. He could have been sacked at the City game. He could have been sacked before the international break. Some people were saying he could have been sacked at the Europa League final. You know, who knows? Darren, give us just initial thoughts, first of all. I mean, I know you knew his time was done.
Yeah.
But what you're thinking overall at the minute?
Relief, I suppose. You know, it was getting to the stage where, and I read this on a United forum actually, that a guy said, he said for the last number of years, he's planned his day around the United game, you know, as most fans would. He said it got to the stage where he couldn't do that anymore because there was nothing to look forward to. I think from a fan's point of view, when you start feeling like that about your team, because we all know fans love their teams, you know, they do. And we can be fickle at times and stuff like that, but you know, a lot of fans are big lovers of their clubs, and it means the world to them, you know, to win games of football and to win trophies and stuff. And I mean, it was so difficult over the last 2 to 3 months watching what was going on at United. And on the pitch was, you know, off the pitch, there's things gone wrong, but on the pitch, there was so little to cheer about. The performances were so poor, the lack of tactical nous and the lack of, you know, understanding between these lads. There's times we obviously call them, you know, Moments FC, and we've been looking at them play games, and something would crop up towards the end of a game and you'd win a game in a Champions League. Obviously, a bit of magic from Ronaldo, but you're not going to win trophies on that. You can't win trophies for that. It's not sustainable. You know, we talk that word sustainable is big now in the world with the climate and stuff like that, climate change and everything that's going on. And it just wasn't sustainable to win football matches that way. With these moments of individual brilliance in a game, you know, that'll only get you so far. And you will need a couple of those a season, and that's fine. Every team needs that. But when you're going out week after week and you're going a goal or 2 goals down to these, you know, mid-table to lower-end table sides, you're just thinking, what is going on here? Like, the message, I know some fellas or some people spoke about, obviously, maybe the players were playing for Ollie and stuff like that, you know? But I don't know if they were. I know they dug in to win games and stuff, but I'm not necessarily sure they went out and really gave it everything, because I think they themselves at a certain stage decided we're not buying into this anymore, because we know it's not what needs to be happening type thing, you know? And only they know that from what goes on a daily basis in Carrington and stuff like that. But yeah, just I suppose now it's, for me, we're looking forward, and it's all about who we give the next opportunity to. You know, that for me is really, really important, that it's a good appointment, because we've kind of gone from appointment to appointment over the last few years, and I do feel like we need to look and say, okay, we're giving it to a guy here for 5 years, and by hook or by crook, he ends up there in 5 years' time. And let's give him that time to build something. Let's give him that time to put his stamp on it and to maybe change the direction of the club and stuff like that, you know?
Do you think, question for you, I've actually 2 questions. One, I brought up on a podcast before when the 3 of us were together on a podcast about Ronaldo coming in. Has it been, although there's been moments there and he's dug you out on a number of occasions, has the introduction of those players created a disabling factor in terms of, I said at the start of the season when United fans were losing their mind and going, we got Varane and Sancho, and now we've got Ronaldo, the prodigal son is back, and it's all good, and we're going to push on, we're going to win the league, we're going to do this, that, and the other. And there was this whole furore around everything that was going on. And I turned around and I said, it doesn't matter the level of what player you bring in there, because the coach is not capable of managing. And I said, this could potentially, I said, this will expose Solskjaer now, because I said, now the board have positioned themselves in such a way that there's no excuses now. They've backed him. He spent something like 400 million. They brought in quality players. Now, albeit Varane has had injury issues and stuff like that, and I accept that. Sancho, he kind of hasn't really used him in the way he should. And when he has used him, he hasn't kind of performed the way you would think. Obviously, Ronaldo was cropped up and had moments and stuff like that. But when you're bringing in that quality of player and that's your manager, I think you're causing a problem straight away. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that in terms of a destabilizing factor. Because you look at United last season, they came second. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I'd say it was destabilizing, but I'd certainly say it didn't help the situation. You know, I think, again, when you get somebody like Ronaldo in on so many levels, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. But you've also got to look at the level and say, is this what we need right now? And I think there's a case to be made that Ronaldo wasn't what we needed at that stage. And I think, again, when you bring somebody in like that, you obviously know he's going to play, because you're not bringing him in to sit on the bench or to warm the bench and stuff like that. So when you bring him in, you know he's going to get game time. And that's going to obviously push an awful lot of lads down the pecking order and give less opportunities to maybe younger, more, more energetic and more vibrant players out on the pitch and stuff like that. Huh?
I said you can't really say the word hungry, because obviously he's still hungry. Yeah,
he's still very hungry, but I mean,
energy and vibrancy though is good. That's a good
choice.
Yeah,
and work rate. I've spoken about it already. Like, I do feel like when we play with Ronaldo, we're playing with 10 men at times, because his lack of work rate is a little on the scary side. Now here's the problem: you go through a game, and if you get him 2 chances, he might score twice. And all of a sudden, then people say, well, where's your argument now? Well, I still say we're playing with 10 men. I just say we're playing with 10 men with a guy that's a really good finisher and can bring something to the party. But there's Saturday, we had chances to get us back to 2-2. He didn't take the chances. And if you take out the fact that he didn't take those 2 chances, what did he do all around in the game on Saturday? Very, very little. And that means that the style of play, you can't play a certain style of play with him in the team. You can't play that high press. He doesn't press.
I have a counter argument to that, because I'm kind of a Ronaldo guy. I think when you look at, and I don't think it's Ronaldo's fault, and you're 100% accurate in all of your statements there. But I think when you look at that little moment of play where Sancho gets that beautiful cross in and Ronaldo nods it down for Van de Beek to score the equaliser, that's kind of almost the style of football United should be playing every week. And then Ronaldo's an asset, right? Because you're not playing on the back foot. So essentially what you've got is, I know we can blame Ollie as a manager and all that. We can do this. There's kind of a double-barreled here, a double-barreled argument here from an outsider looking in. On one hand, you've got Ollie, right, he's quite clearly not good enough. His track record didn't really lend itself to him getting the job in the first place anyway. He always managed to dig himself out. And I know Niall mentioned that, he came second last year, but that was almost like there was a false kind of narrative and a pretense there, wasn't it? Because I don't know how it happened. I think other teams...
It was a little bit like silly season with COVID as well, let's not forget.
It really was. Do you know what I mean? And, you had the whole thing with a lot of the top teams just didn't, whatever way, they didn't perform. It was just a very weird... And I think a lot of the fickle United supporters, the prawn sandwich eaters, kind of jumped on board with that and said, yeah, this is good enough for us. But then you had the likes of yourself, Darren, who watch it week in, week out. And like you mentioned, sustainability. It was like, we're not going anywhere playing this because we don't have an identity. So the double barrel that I'm talking about there is that you've got Ollie, who's obviously been backed by the board, so fans cannot blame the board on this one. Do you know what I mean? They cannot. They can blame them on maybe the wrong appointment and not pulling the trigger earlier and stuff like that, but they cannot complain about the board in terms of how they're backing managers and stuff like that. The problem is, who is the guys? What I'd really want to know, if it was my club, what I would really want to know, because we had it with Chelsea as well when Mourinho was there as well, when Amenala was there. It was like, who's making these signings? Who's signing Bakayoko? Who's signing Baba Rahman? Do you know what I mean? Who are these lads? So it's, what's the network at United? What's the structure? Where does it begin with? And I think the likes of Ferguson, as I said, I think he's a problem. I think without a shadow of a doubt, I think he should be there as a spectator, and rightly so, because greatest manager of all time and all that. But he's hindering United's progress. And then you're like, right, there's a director of football going from Liverpool at the end of the season. I'm like, if I'm United, I'm going, please get me him. I know Chelsea and all are looking at him too.
He's on his way to Villa, isn't he?
I don't know.
He's on his way to Villa to work under Christian Pearslow and to work in with Gerrard. Yeah.
Well, that's a great job. But I mean, there's some. You know, this is what I'm talking about. The structure. I'm kind of saying to myself, right, where is the structure here? Ollie's the fall guy, but he's just the next fall guy in a long line now. You know what I mean? You know, Moyes, fucking. It doesn't matter who the next guy has to be brought in, has to have a say the way Ferguson all did, and has to have a director of football to work with that they can agree on and say, right, I don't need these kind of, these kind of shiny signings like Ronaldo and stuff like that. Because like I said, that little moment in play when you saw Sancho cross the ball in for Ronaldo, that's where Ronaldo's an asset if he's got enough enough backup around them on the rest of the pitch that can make them play that kind of football.
Yeah, see, when I make that point, I'm not questioning Ronaldo as the footballer or his skill or anything like that. Yeah. What I'm actually questioning is dropping him into that cauldron and that environment.
Exactly.
And his expectation is way up here, and what he's dealing with is way down here on a daily basis. And I think what happens is with him as well, he's one of those players that if you don't keep him motivated and switched on, Darren has mentioned it before, he just switches off and he just goes invisible in games.
Yeah, and something I know I've mentioned a few times, and with the style of play and stuff like that, like, and what tying in with what Ian said there, we have a guy who can head the ball, right? And if you think of Cavani as well, we have a second guy who can head the ball.
Yeah.
Now, I would say in the Premier League, as a two, you probably don't have two better headers of the ball in a pairing, right?
I'd agree.
And you can pick me up if I'm wrong. And for so long, we're playing with two lads on the wings, be it Rashford and Greenwood, or Pogba and Greenwood, who like to tuck in, which means rather than getting by the fullback, or rather than getting the ball to the fullback, to our own fullback who's on an overlap and getting balls in the box this way, we always end up out on the edge of the box with somebody trying to slide the ball to the likes of Bruno, who can have a 20, 30 yarder. And then we've got strikers that are redundant because they're not having chances created for them because the ball's not getting wide enough to get it in this side.
You use your fullbacks as the decoy runners instead of the actual ball players.
And at times, when people go, oh, well, they're the decoy, that's when you give them the ball and they go, well, actually, no, we're not the decoy. We can cross it as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's the coaching and that's the narrative and the pattern of play that's there.
And for a long time, we were lumping the ball forward and we didn't have anyone to head it. Now we've got these two really, really good headers of the ball.
Two of the best. Two of the best.
I would agree. They probably are the two best headers of the ball in the league. And like I said, when you look at such a simple move, and it was such an old school United move, Sancho with a beauty cross in, boom, headed down, simple.
You could have been watching, and I'm not comparing anyone to anyone, but the way he got the ball out of his feet and got the ball in, you could have been watching Beckham put a ball into Van Nistelrooy there in the middle, and it was really simple. And it's not, you're not overthinking it. It's very, very simple, and people are gonna go, but it's defendable. But if it's really good, it's not, because if you can put a ball
was off his feet.
United for years made teams look stupid with simple goals. They made people look stupid.
And there's an area between the back four and the goalkeeper that if the quality comes in there, it's good enough. You'll always cause trouble because the keeper's looking at the back four thinking, are these guys going to come back and take this? The back four looking at the keeper going, is this guy going to come out and take this? And when you create that indecision, when you get players going back towards their own goal, stuff goes wrong for defenders and for back fours and for goalkeepers. But get them turned earlier. Don't be like United always seem to want to play in front of teams and let them sit off them and stuff like that. Get a bit of width in. This is where we've always had, success was width in teams. Stretch that pitch, Every time we get the ball to the wingers now, wingers, I use the term lightly because they're obviously, inside forwards, they come back inside. And you're like, we bought Sancho to play as a right-sided attacker. And for the first 6 or 8 games he played him on the left, which meant he had to come back in, which spoiled him completely because at Dortmund, when he was at his absolute best, everything was coming from the right across the goal for Haaland.
Exactly.
What do you make of the talk that was coming out, Darren? There was talk coming out that Carrick and the boys were coaching, and McKenna, they were coaching the team with a game plan for Saturday against particular teams. And then Ollie was coming in and he was changing it last minute, where they were wanting to play not a press game. They wanted to play that patient type of game and stuff like that. And that's what they coached the boys all week for. And then Ollie would rock up game day and tell them he wanted them to press.
I smell bullshit there, man.
Is that a coach covering exercise?
Oh, listen, we've said it before. Paper doesn't refuse ink, does it? And I think now more than ever, there's stories to be written at United, and all of these things can be picked at and poked holes at, and you can say, because the media already know they're not going to get into Ollie because he said, listen, I'm going to do this interview, and the rest of the boys can jog on, so they're going to have to go a different angle and a different route about getting into here. Yeah. And maybe they're hoping that they're gonna goad them into coming out, by saying, it was your fault actually, because those lads, McKenna and Carrick and Fletcher as well, were setting the team up a certain way, and you were coming in and then changing it. So actually, it's at your door there, Ollie, and hopefully to goad them into it. But here's the thing: we're gonna find out tomorrow night, because Carrick and McKenna and Phelan are still there, and we're gonna see what the style of play is. Now, if in the first 45 minutes of this game, we see a completely different Man United, we see a different set of tactics, and we see guys pulling in a different shape and direction, then we can look and go, all right, we have a problem here.
There could be a theory to the talk. Yeah.
Right.
But what you said is very true there, because usually the whole bounce back game thing is one thing. If it's the same side of football, you've just got players that are more up for it. But one thing that you pointed out, which I thought was very interesting, if you see a different tactical approach and a different shape to what you've been used to, then that could be very good.
And not only that, a different selection.
If I'll be absolutely shocked, and I mean shocked, if Donny van de Beek doesn't start tomorrow night. I can't see any way how he doesn't start after obviously coming on the weekend and probably in the 45 is on being our best player in the park, right? And getting involved
in a stinker as well, to be fair to him.
Again?
I said, because to be fair, Bruno did have a stinker that day as well. I thought Donny van de Beek was absolutely...
Bruno's had a number of stinkers recently, but still got, he was the first time on the team sheet week to week. And that's where obviously you've got to decide, am I brave enough to take this step and to go, listen, pal, you're not having a great time at the minute. Take a seat there for a game or two, or a game and a half even. And let's see you, want it a little more. Because lads, as soon as lads know they're going to play week to week, they start to rest in their laurels. We've seen it before. We only needed to bring Dean Henderson back for De Gea to show himself again. We only needed to buy Alex Tellez for Luke Shaw to turn around and say, well, actually, I can play football, lads. You know what I mean? So don't give lads a chance to rest on their laurels. Competition is always what drove Man United on. We had 4 strikers when we won that treble. We had Sheringham, Solskjaer, York and Cole. And game to game, those lads didn't know who was going to play because any one of them could have rocked up on their day and did the job we needed to do.
Yeah.
When you know every game going out, who was going to start, who's going to sit in the bench, and who's going to get their opportunity after 60 minutes, what's the point? What's the point in going out and breaking your nutsack on a bleeding Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in training if you know it's going to be the status quo on a Saturday afternoon and you're going to be left sitting on that bench? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting paid anyway. Yeah.
Right. So what's the...
Yeah, tell me this. I want to move on from Molly now and talk about where we go from here type of thing, In terms of the interview, you led me nicely into the interview. What was your overall thinking of the interview and this talk? I mean, talk to me about the legacy that he has left. I mean, he talked a lot about a foundation that he had put in place. He tried to get back. He tried to get the team back the United way, as they call it, and all that kind of thing. But in fairness, there was a sort of like, not a weirdness, but there was kind of a sincerity to him. He got emotional, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Listen, I don't think you can question the man's sincerity. You know, he's a Man United fan through and through. He's got 4 season tickets. You know, I think he'll have them till the day he dies. Because that's the way he sees that club. The club is special to him. The club gave him a lot as a player, and I think he genuinely wanted to give back to the club. And when he came into the club and we got that bounce, we were unbeaten in the first 11 games, and we were eight wins in the bounce, and we looked like a serious football team. Like you can forgive the likes of the board thinking, Jesus, look at this guy, But you've also got to say, what state did Mourinho have the players in that's what they could do post Mourinho? He had the life drained out of them. And when he left and the lads all took that big sigh of relief, went, ooh, he's gone, right? And obviously they go and they start playing football and they're enjoying things. But it's after that initial new manager bounce that we talk about that you should have then started to see a foundation and a formation and a set of tactics that we didn't necessarily see, and we failed to see over the 3 years while he was there, and I mean,
the comparisons are actually crazy when I think about it.
Yeah.
But just on a shorter term basis, when Di Matteo took over from Chelsea, we obviously went out and won the Champions League and stuff like that. Obviously Abramovich had to give him the job then because he did it, and it's very, very similar to what Oli had done, obviously without the trophy kind of side of it, but still, it was like, you were going, right, well, we have to give this lad a chance. We're going to buy these players from, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then he just wasn't up to the job. And then they pulled the trigger. Whereas obviously now they put Oli in a position where they probably extended his stay a lot longer than it should have been.
And the big red flag for me, and I spoke about this with the lads earlier on, was the big red flag for me was the issue in the semi-finals. And that's when a manager earns his salt, really. When you get to the business end of things.
Yeah.
Like we had 5 semi-finals that he didn't manage to navigate. Now, you can say there's all sorts of reasons, but he had 5 opportunities to go up against different managers. Lopetegui, there's Emre in the final, obviously. You've got Brendan Rodgers. Like, we had opportunities to go and win trophies, realistic opportunities, and it didn't happen. And for me, that was a red flag that we were going to have a problem getting to this next level. Because when he came up against those technically and tactically efficient managers and guys that knew, how to move those pawns around on a board, he struggled. And that should have been something where the lads went, okay, he's got that glass ceiling, he's trying to reach for that brass ring, but he can't quite get it because he doesn't know how to get up that last step or two.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something where the board could have said, listen, we need to bring someone in with you. Maybe you're doing an awful lot right in the club, which I think a lot of United fans will agree with. There was a lot of moves made while he was there that fans were happy with, and fans said, we did do things better at times as a club, but not necessarily as a team,
Yeah, I think, I sort of compare it somewhat to say to Arsenal. I think about these teams, and I think these teams are capable of going on a run of 10 games, but then they come up against that team that's tactical and technically sound, and they just get played off the park. And everyone's going along thinking it's rosy in the garden, it could be 8 wins and 2 draws, and they're on a run and they're going up the table and all that kind of thing. And then they suddenly come up against a Tuchel or a Klopp or a Pep or a Nagelsmann or whoever it is, or a Ten Hag, who's technically
even Ranieri the other day.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Someone who knows their stuff and can drill it into players and stuff like that. And then you really get found out. And that's when the light bulb goes off, as Darren said, and you go, yeah, now I know. And that's, and I compare it very much like you look at Arsenal even the other day going to Liverpool, and they were on such a great run, and Arsenal fans were talking about how they were going to spank us up and jump ahead of us in the table, and then you suddenly get found out and brought back down to earth. And I think, in fairness to Solskjaer, at times he did put some good runs together, and United did play some good football. But I think even within those runs at times, there was some fortuitous moments as well. And as I said earlier in the show that he came second in the league. I always believe, I know there's mitigating factors at times that Ian would have touched on, you would have touched on as well. But I always believe every year, even as a Liverpool fan, the table doesn't lie. The table does not lie. Over 38 games.
I would have absolutely agreed with you in 99 of the last 100 seasons. But last year, I just feel like it was so different. I think if you look at it from a point of view of, the big sides, the likes of the Liverpools, the likes of the Cities, the likes of the Chelseas, who would go in, all right, actually, maybe we have to take City out of this because I'm going to bring fans into it. We all know they don't have any. But, like, if you think about teams going to the likes of Anfield or going to the likes of Stamford Bridge and having to go into that cauldron atmosphere, right? And all of a sudden you take fans out of that, yeah? And all of a sudden you're playing, well, actually, do you know what? We're not playing these 40, 50, 60,000 boys in the stands anymore. That are hassling us, that are growling at us, that are making stuff so difficult for us. We've only got to play these 11 guys in front of us, and these are beatable. And I think that it gives an awful lot of self-belief. Like, you look at what Burnley did to Liverpool last year in Anfield. I bet they don't do it this year.
No.
But Darren, you made a good point last year as well, though, Darren, and you were actually a very honest United fan in that sense, like, because that was a record-breaking year, wasn't it? With the amount of penalties awarded and stuff like that in the lockdown. And you even said, like, if you look back on it, we're like, let's be real, we were bailed out so many times. And it was kind of refreshing to hear that from a United fan that was kind of looking at it saying, well, look, it's grand, I'm going to take the penalty when we get it. Any team will, and any fan will, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. But you were kind of saying that, I remember you saying, I wasn't on the show with you, but I remember listening to you, were saying it's kind of masking a lot of the problems. Do you know what I mean?
Well, like, when penalties are what gets you over the line,
if
you take them away, you're in trouble again.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the issue was. Like, I don't know if has any team ever had more penalties than we had last season.
No, I wouldn't have
like
thought
that
so.
Was and
listen, it was
I think looking at it, like, most of them were legit, like, but it still slanted the number slightly and made things seem maybe a little bit off what they were,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the point I was making. I wasn't trying to be
no,
but it's a valid point in terms of your form. You know what I mean? When you look, that's why I mentioned the team did go on some runs, and they were showing at times a certain pattern of play and a structure, but it was also masked at times, but that little bit of fortuitous look at times that came in terms of those penalties. But the flip side of that is you do have to go and earn a penalty if you get it most of the times,
Exactly.
Let's move on anyway. Darren, what's next for United now? I mean, they really need to get it right this time, don't they? They can't get
the next
this one
manager right. Exactly.
Well, the talk, just to put you in the picture, the talk coming out tonight was that apparently the locker room at PSG have been told that Zidane is imminent going into PSG, which I would believe then Poch is on his way to United, because apparently his family are still living in London and he hasn't settled in France. That's the talk that has come out. Now, the question for me is, let's take that point first. Is Poch the man to go in there?
I'd be happy with Poch, I have to say. I would. I think he did a really good job at Southampton, and he did a very, very good job at Spurs. And I think United fans are probably looking for him before now. And they're probably going to be surprised if we do manage to get him out of PSG, albeit it'll be because they know Zidane is floating around and stuff like that. I think last year in the winter break, they sacked Tuchel and they brought Pochettino in, and the talk is that maybe this winter break they'll sack Poch and bring Zidane in. But it looks like now it may not even get that far, because there's big talk that Poch is even trying to buy himself out of his own contract. Because
so in talks then,
because he knows, or he's you know, his family do. They're still living in London, and he's England to get back to England, and basically he sees the United job as a job that he A, can't turn down, and B, would be worried about that he wouldn't get the offer again.
Yeah, because you would assume whoever they bring in this time, it has to be a 5-year with full support and all that, doesn't it? Not that Ollie didn't get the support, but there has to be some sort of stability brought to the situation. But in terms of Poch, when you look at Poch, okay, you're talking about a guy who's, you know, he hasn't got a CV laden with trophies. He's generally came up short himself. You know, when you talk about him doing a really good job at Southampton, and he did a decent job at Spurs as well. But now we're talking about Man United, where the expectation is way higher than both those clubs. And rightly so. And you're also talking about a guy, I would say, who I think was out of work for about 18 months? At least a year anyway.
Yeah, he was probably close to a year out.
Yeah, and which is kind of weird as well in this world.
Well, it is and it isn't, because I think there was obviously opportunities to come back, but I think maybe the opportunities weren't at the level where he saw himself.
Now, the only other thing I'd say to you as well is, I mean, he lost the French league last year with an outstanding team.
I don't think he lost the French league last year. Personally speaking, and I had this conversation with somebody today, I don't think he lost it. Like, they weren't in the position to win it when he came in, as in, you know, they weren't in the driver's seat, let's say. You know, would you have said that they should have won it based on the squad they have and the players they had at their disposal? Absolutely, there's no argument there. But I would have said it was also due to the part that Tuchel played, because Tuchel had them in that position as well. But for me, I think Poch is, you know, he fits the bill for a lot of United fans. You know, he plays a good brand of football.
So is that what it boils down to then? Because I'm just going to jump in here. In my opinion, Poch, how can we call him a success? He's never won at him. He's had money, he's had backing, he's managed Spurs like with a lot of good players, built a good team for sure.
Got to a final of a Champions League.
Second in the league,
but lost.
Yeah, I was making those points in as well when you popped out there, but
he's going to arguably.
But the real point I'm making is, one, is he going to be strong enough in terms of managing the Ronaldos and the Varans? And two, is Man United being ambitious enough? Is the height of their ambition Poch, or should they be more ambitious? Should they be doing everything they can to get that absolute manager up there? Like.
But who is it though?
Well,
there's
yeah. But that's the question. But the other question I'd have for you as well is, okay, if Jurgen Klopp left Liverpool tomorrow, or Tuchel left Chelsea, or Pep left Man City, would any of those three clubs be looking at Poch? I would think no.
No, okay. but to go on your point, they're not going to get those three though.
No, they're not going to get those three. But that's the level at which United are trying to get back to be competitive in the league again.
You see, I think, and here's where I find the problem. If you're talking about that level and an absolute proven at that level, what are we saying? 5 in the world? Maybe.
If even.
Maybe 5. So
who else?
What are you talking? Are you saying Hansi Flick? Are you saying Julian Nagelsmann? Are you saying the 3 boys in Conte? So
and probably Zidane.
And Zidane. So we're at 7. So Zidane is available, but United seem to be looking the other way and saying it's not what we need, or it's not what we want.
Is it not what they want, or is it not what he wants?
I think there's a case.
Or is it a combination of the two?
I think it's a combination of the two.
Okay, so if your level out in the market that you're thinking about is Zidane, and now you're thinking Poch, there's a massive gap between Zidane and Poch. A massive gap.
Yeah, but I don't think there's enough in between is the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like who do you go for between Zidane and Poch? Like, and I know I understand what you're saying. I understand what you say in a sense of silverware and stuff like that. Like you have to look at where he brought Spurs from. You know, like he's done a serious job to get Spurs to second in the league and second in the Champions League. Yeah. Like there's only the few teams that can take that very final step and win that league title or win that Champions League. But that doesn't mean to say, you know, that if you can get them up into the equation that you haven't done a serious job as well. And I mean, I would believe the squad he'd go into United with, plus what he would be made available to him, would be more than enough for him to push for what he was able to push for at Spurs. And that would be a damn sight further than United are right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think personally, looking from the outside in, and like Ian, I'm quite neutral on this, you know what I mean? But I just think United bringing Poch in, I think shows a serious. Now I know the counter argument is, well, who's available and blah 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 blah. But I think it shows a serious lack of ambition. And I think if United's goal at the moment is just to kind of be involved in the shake-up, they're setting themselves up for a much lower bar than that, aren't they, when you think about it? If their goal is not to win the league.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and don't forget, there's absolutely no guarantee with any manager, right? There's no guarantee. And first of all, to be in the shake-up, yeah, that means you have a chance. If you can't get to the shake-up, you can't win it either way. And that's where United are at the minute, you know?
Yeah.
You've got to be in the draw to win the draw. And at the minute, we're not in the draw.
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking is, I'm just thinking, if you are in the shake-up, okay? If you're in the shake-up and you've got Poch there and he's going against the likes of a Pep or a Tuchel or a Klopp, I don't see him coming out the right side of that shake-up. If you've Zinedine Zidane in there, that's a very different shake-up. Different shake-up.
Let me just say one thing on that, Niall. Listen, putting Zidane in there or putting, you know, because like I said, I think the manager was available for United, and I think it was Conte. He's the one that can get you instant results without a shadow of a doubt. Far better manager than Pep or than Pochettino. Anyway, that's a fact. Just look at his track record. He wins trophies and he does play a decent brand of football. Always has. Now, question is how long does he stay? That's fair enough. I get you. But here's the real question. Are we in a situation here now where we have to stop thinking of, United are the biggest club in the world, one of the biggest clubs in the world. But are they one of the biggest teams in the world now? No. Their level isn't as serial trophy winners over the last while.
Hasn't been since Ferguson left.
Exactly. So let's stop looking at United in that kind of top echelon of challenging for the Premier League. So and this is kind of where I'm now starting to see where Darren's point is. Do they say, right, here's a 5-year project for someone like Pep who can ingrain a brand of football and instill a brand of football from the youth academy up to the first team, that they all know exactly how to play that brand of football, much like, you know, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, Barcelona, etc., etc. And then is Pep the right man to bring United into that next phase?
Poch, you mean?
Sorry. Yeah. Then I can see that. If that's what you're going for, then I can see that working. You know, I can see him if he knows he has the time to do that. Absolutely. If you're bringing Poch in for instant results within a year or two, then I don't see that work. So this all comes back to one question and one question only. What is the vision of the board and what's the long-term goals? And is there long-term goals or are they only short-term? You know what I mean?
The vision's got to be to get United back challenging for league titles and for Champions Leagues. And we know at the minute that that's not going to happen with the brand of football we play, with the style of football we play, with our tactics, and maybe with the squad we have in the exact form it's in. Like, I believe there's there's much bigger things on the horizon for United. And I think at the minute, we need to kind of see what has to happen at the club, like Ian says. And there's a lot of changes need to happen at United. Obviously from the coaching staff point of view, from the structural point of view, but even from the squad, like you've got an awful lot of balls in the air at the minute. You know, you've got Pogba who's there at the minute. Will he be there past
January? Under Ferguson's watch, by the way, a player running down a contract and fucking still being in the conversation.
You know, so like you've got to sort out the Pogba situation. I don't believe he's going to be a good influence in the dressing room. I think he undermines the manager. Unless he's tied down to some sort of a deal that he's happy with, and that, you know. But I think other than that, it's going to be the Paul Pogba show. I think he's got to leave. I think you've got somebody like Jesse who maybe wants game time and wants certain, you know,
especially for his international career.
Because he's getting to an age now, like, you know, where he needs to know he's going to play week in, week out, certain amount of game time, which is going to put him in the shake-up for that England team. Now, listen, he's fighting an uphill task to get into that England starting 11 either way. But if he doesn't, again, play games, he doesn't give himself the platform or the foundation to go and get into that squad and to get into that team. Yeah. So, and he's fighting against the likes of Conor Gallagher, the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe, you know, he's Bukayo Saka, all of these lads. So he's fighting against some good players, like, and he's starting to get into the twilight of his career, some would say, you know, and there's a lot of that United squad that needs looking at. Although I do believe there's good in the squad, I maybe don't see the good the way other people would say it. Like, I would see Brandon Williams as a plus for United, right? I would, and some United fans might say, why would you do that? He's a young fullback, you know, he's hungry, and he can defend, he can attack, he's got a good engine on him, he's aggressive. Like, he would do as an understudy for United, and maybe he might push something. Now, are we saying you're going to win league titles with him? We don't know that, because don't forget, we've won league titles with Wes Brown, we've won league titles with John O'Shea, we've won league titles with Darren Fletcher, Luke Chadwick, right? So you can't just say, by singling out one particular player, you can't say, well, you can't win a league title with them, because we all know that's, you know, pony, right? But you do need the squad to have a certain balance to it. And I think the United squad at the minute is a little bit unbalanced in certain areas. And there's not enough quality in certain areas. Look at the centre-back role, for instance sake. If we're saying, you know, Varane is nailed on to play game in, game out, who's he playing with? Are we going to say Maguire's in beside him every game? The way Maguire's been playing at the minute, I don't think we can say Maguire is our first choice or second choice centre-back. I think he's in this discussion for the second centre-back role, but I don't think he's nailed on. You know,
I think he's found out personally. Yeah,
I suppose the issue you have there as well is Varane capable of playing every game and being that guy either as well, you know?
I call this with Varane. I watch a lot of Spanish football. I'm a Madrid guy. He's a flamboyant player. He's a Rolls Royce player without the Rio Ferdinand toughness, if that makes sense.
I think this can happen, players, though, when they move to a league like the Premier League initially. He can have this bounce of injuries, because
he had a Ramos.
It's the increase in the physicality, you know?
Yeah. But he had a Ramos. Do you know what I mean? And it's gonna. I think a question I wanted to ask you before I have to jump off soon, lads. So I'll find out soon. But just a question I wanted to ask, and this isn't a knock at all, but it's a fair question. Even looking down at United's youth system, that's where, you know, we had the class of '92 and we looked at all that and the players. You know, that's a kind of a once in a lifetime thing. I think a lot of United fans still hold. I'm not saying you do, but still hold that as that United have this best youth system. That hasn't been really seen in a long time. I mean, when is the last gem that has scored, you know, 15, 20 goals plus, even in the striker form? We thought it'd be Rashford. Do you know what I mean?
Talking Rashford and Greenwood, really, like.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you know what I mean? They're the two. And it's kind of like, but they haven't been, you know, that, you know, guy that you expected to drive the ship, so to speak.
I think the problem with both of them is they haven't been given the license to continue their development because of the issues at United. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think if you had a Tuchel in there, or you had a real good manager in there and stuff like that, the likes of Greenwood and all would be an absolute superstar now, because his development would have continued.
Absolutely. And this is what I'm saying. It's not the individual players, but what I'm saying is it's like, right, there's a pathway here. You're doing pretty decent. You're up on Saturday. But there's no actual individual coaching stuff. So, for example, say the United, even the youth team in United, right? I guarantee you there's a difference in styles and in tactics that they play. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you look at the clubs that have a great youth system, I'll use us as an example. They play the same formation. They're trying to play the same kind of system.
Yeah, they have that Chelsea way from bottom to top.
They know exactly where they fit in, when they come up. And I mean, that's something that United kind of almost helped write the book on. Do you know what I mean? Along with the likes of the Barcelonas and stuff like that. Yeah. They knew the Nevilles and all coming up, and the Scholes coming up. They knew you're slotting in alongside Roy Keane today. This is your role.
There's been a couple of glaring mistakes in there in the youth setup for me personally. And I think one of the issues was, if you look at the likes of Scholes, Beckham, the class of 92, stuff like that, the Nevilles and stuff like that, Nicky Butt, they were all Manchester boys. They were all boys from in and around. Okay, Beckham was London, but they were all guys from in and around that neck of the woods, They were homegrown lads. United have gone and spent an awful lot of money in the last few years buying in youth from all around the world and trying to hand pick from the talent, that other clubs are maybe nurturing like that, and you'd see them get involved. And obviously we paid big money for the boy Hannibal and stuff like that, and there's an expectancy there for him to be a star. But there's no given when guys come from leagues outside of England. We've said it obviously with Varane, and like Varane's a much more accomplished footballer than buying the likes of Hannibal. Do you know what I mean? Buying him as a 16-year-old kid and thinking this kid's gonna be like, he's got to settle in Manchester. If you're a kid that's coming from Europe, that's a huge step to go to England. Maybe you're going without your family. Maybe your family are going with you. We don't know, but there's all the the cultural differences and stuff like that.
Even if your family's with you, yeah, absolutely.
Right, and it's all well and good having the money in your pocket and stuff like that. But we know like that there's a way of life that these guys want to try and live based on the upbringing they've had, and it can be tough and stuff like that. Now, listen, don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing flower petals at them and saying poor them, but you can see at times why stuff doesn't work, and I'm trying to handpick that kind of talent from all around Europe and from around the world. I don't think necessarily suits a club like United. I think we're better off with the likes of the Brandon Williams, with the likes of the Jesse Lingards, Marcus Rashford,
more local understanding.
Right, because there's an awful lot of history and stuff like that goes with Man United that maybe, guys that come into the club don't know. Now listen, it's great when you have guys that do come into the club and do appreciate the history and stuff like that. But I think, that's where it maybe works at another club. And I think it's about
but it's the same with us. Like you think of the last Andreas Christensen is the only one I can think. Think of the last kind of European player that's come in and
but Chelsea used the system differently. Right?
Yeah,
because
but look at the
Chelsea
lads that have stepped up now, and they're all London boys, like you said. That's what I'm saying. They're all local boys.
Chelsea used the system very differently because Chelsea used it to inflate the prices of the players that they brought in, which from a physical point of view, from a financial point of view, is a very clever way of doing it.
Of course.
Like they know if they bring in, Johnny from Monaco and he cost them 5 million and he gets into their under 23s and all of a sudden they loan him out and he scores a couple of goals or makes an assist or a couple of clean sheets, that he's shipping out of the building at 15 to 20 million. and that rolls straight back in. And then they go off and they pay, it's like Pep doing his maths and he's saying, well, actually, we didn't pay 100 million for Grealish because we got 60 for X, Y, or Z. So it only cost us 40. So it's that creative accounting. So I don't think Chelsea really, really want to create players the way maybe United want to create players. I think they want to create a financial turnover, which allows them to then go and buy the best in Europe and in the world. You know what I mean?
Well, not necessarily, though, when you see like a Chalobah then coming up this year and you're going shit, because you do create that pool.
Yeah, but Chalobah is what I'm saying. Chalobah's that local kid.
No, but that's I'm in agreement with you there. That's what I'm saying with Mason Mount, Chalobah, Reece James. Yeah. Those boys have all come up. Loftus-Cheek. Yeah. Those Hudson-Odoi. I mean, that's fucking 5 players within the space of 3 years now that have come in from that academy, that are all local lads, like what you were saying about United back in the day.
But Chelsea as well over years have developed such a great network, even for loaning out players and developing them and all. You look when Chelsea's youth comes into the team, they're like physical beasts. They're grown men ready to go. You know what I mean? It's not like your blood and youth when you think about it. You look at Chalobah when he comes in, the guy's a monster. He's an absolute monster going in there. You know what I mean? He can only succeed. And then you're also putting him in there. Look at who you're putting him in there with. He's in there with the Rudigers and the Thiago Silvas of this world, and Mendy at the back, who's outstanding. So, he's already putting 3 aces down, and he's just waiting on the 4th to drop in the poker game. You know what I mean?
I think that's what United need to be looking at. And that's why I agree with Darren's point that, it's the local lads that are your bread and your butter.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, in terms of Chelsea, they're so good at doing it. If you look at United, if you drop Chalobah in there beside Harry Maguire, or you put him in there beside Lindelof or someone like that, you ain't got the same Chalobah there, not without a shadow of a doubt. You know what I mean? It's just not going to work. That's why Chelsea are so brilliant at doing it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So and also you look at it as well, Ian, the timing of when Chelsea, their timing is so precise in introducing these players as well. They always have that experience beside them as well to guide them and stuff like that. Like, you imagine a youth player coming in to train with the Chelsea side. It must be unbelievable to be in there with a Thiago Silva, or a Jorginho or a Lukaku or whoever it is. I mean, the lift that gives you alone will give you 20, 30% of the player that you are. You know what I mean? And Chelsea are the best at doing that.
Yeah, and I suppose you're looking at Mason Mount and lads who are there since they're 8 years old, getting the rub from the likes of Drogba and all. I just think United probably have that, where they have some of these lads have been there at 6 and 7 years of age, and they've been around Ronaldo possibly, or Rooney, for example, and you're kind of going, right, United are doing them a little. This is what I'm going to say before I go, because I do have to go after this point. But I'm going to leave you two with this one. I think the United structure is doing a lot of these young lads a little bit of a disservice, because there's no actual direction. There's no tactical structure that they need to fit in. Does Mason Greenwood know whether he's a striker now or is he a winger? I mean, it's the same thing with Rashford. Is he a striker? Is he a winger? I know people have said, he needs 20 shots before he gets a goal. Grand. But if you play in that attacking system, at least he's going to get the goal eventually. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I suppose the thing of looking at it as well is, if you're a youth player there when Fergie left, you're now 19. You know what I mean? So it's difficult from that point of view as well, isn't it, Darren? When you think about it and you're trying to come into that system, you're now a 19-year-old, but you've spent the last 9 years or 8 years at United with a massive turnover of managers, very little success, very little stability, a lack of confidence, really not finding those players that you can look to and go, he's the guy I want to be. He's the guy's spot that I want to take one day.
And possibly with 4 or 5 different sets of ideas about what they feel you can bring and where you're going to flourish and where you need to work on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where we're talking about the likes of having a Poch in there for a set period of time. And if the board came out and were really clever, they could do it. Now, I know you talk about that somebody's contract, that, when they come out and they sign a contract, it's a 3-year contract, they'll be there for 3 years. If the board came out and said, listen, we're giving this guy a 5-year contract and he will see out every single day of it.
Yeah.
That gives
the stability.
That gives the stability. that gives the manager, that gives the players, that gives the guy who they try to sign next summer.
Yeah, it gives you a plan and a framework.
And that gives, like, when he goes into the market next summer and he wants a centre back to play next to Varane, or when he wants, you know, a centre midfielder, he can go and sell that. He can say, listen, Frank, he can go to big Frank up at AC Milan and say, Frank, listen, I'm here for 5 years. You're 23 years of age. You're 24. By the time you're 28, 29, I'm going to have a league title, 2 league titles in the Champions League under your belt with Man United, because this is what we're going to work towards, Frank, right? When you bring someone in, and they don't know if they're getting to next week, there's no buy-in. You know, there's absolutely no buy-in. And this is something where United have to stop. And indeed, I think it got to a stage at Liverpool where I, you know, and it's easy to say in hindsight, but when they gave Klopp the job, they went, this is the best appointment we could have made, right? And they said, now we have to let the process
give them the time. Give them the time
and get it, you know. Whereas I don't feel like in maybe some of the managers before that, it was exactly, they were filling the role, but they weren't necessarily. Did anyone really think Roy Hodgson was going to win a league title with Liverpool?
No.
And I don't say that in disrespect, because I have to
and this is why I say to you, in terms of getting this decision right, because otherwise you just end up in that washing machine tumble dryer, and before you know it, 30 years goes by and you've nothing to show for it, and it goes by just like that. I experienced it with Liverpool. 30 years it took us to win the league.
8 years post Fergie, and it's been a rough 8 years, man. And the thoughts of having to go another 8, and that only puts us at a half of what you guys were at.
Exactly.
So that's, you know, that's scary for a club like United and like Liverpool, who like to see ourselves as the big clubs, which we are big clubs.
Yeah.
But as Ian said earlier, you know, there's a difference between being a big club and a big team. And we need to be a big team, and we need to be a team for all occasions right now. That when we rock up anywhere, legitimately teams worry about us and go, these boys show up, we're in trouble. And that's not happening.
Which probably would have been the expectation at the start of the season when those signings were made. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Because it's not like you were signing hacks or anything like that. You've signed quality players. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's just
and you've added quality players to a squad which had quality players. Now again, I look at the imbalance in the squad and I say, okay, you know, we've one right back.
Yeah.
Who's our other right back? Diogo Dalot? No, he's not. You know, any time he's played, he's been really, really poor. He's got found out defensively. He got absolutely mauled a couple of weeks ago between Wan-Bissaka and him by the boy Arnaud Danjuma, who, don't forget, just left Bournemouth to go to Villarreal. So it's not like they were playing Messi and Neymar. You know, so we don't have a right back. We don't have a number 6. We don't have a 6, a defensive midfielder. You know, a really good one. Like, you look at City, they've Fernandinho and Rodri. Yeah. 2 of them. 2 boys for the same position. Right? And he'll play.
Which is a common theme in that team.
Right?
They have double for most positions.
You look at Chelsea, they've got Kante and they've got Jorginho. Yeah. And they've got Mount. And they've got, you know, Liverpool obviously have Fabinho. And I think Liverpool are possibly a little bit light in that position otherwise, but they're still way ahead of where we are. You know. And obviously when they're more balanced in other areas in the pitch, that's what gets you, you know. Look at what you've got at centre-back now. You've got genuine choices of who's going to play week to week with Van Dijk. And against different teams, you can go, well, you know what, I'm going to play A because that'll play to his best strengths. And then, you know, week 2, I'm going to actually play B because this is a better game for him to play. We're playing the same team week to week because we need to get our best players out on the pitch in the hope that we get a result to keep someone in the job. Now, you know, obviously that's finished now.
Yeah.
But that was what's been going on for quite a while.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's great talking to you about it because, as you said, there's just so many plates being juggled at the moment, and too many of them at the moment are hitting the floor and smashing. Yeah. But it will be very interesting now the next couple of weeks to see what unfolds, who United get. You know, are they going to rush the process? Will they be more patient? I know Carrick at the moment, they were talking about in terms of the badges that he has, he can take control of the team, I think, for 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. And then after that, a decision has to be made. But certainly the Villarreal game coming up is going to be very, very interesting in terms of selection, in terms of pattern of play and tactic and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. It will certainly give us an indication about whether the issue was in terms of the management or in terms of the coaching.
I would love to see, I think we're on early tomorrow night, if I might be 5:45.
Not too sure.
I think we might be. I would love to look at the team and see changes and see, 4 or 5 changes and say, oh my God, look what he's gone with, or maybe even see a change of formation and say, look what he's gone with.
And not for the sake of it, that there's a theory behind it and an understanding. Like if Donny van de Beek is in the team, he's in the team because he should be in the team. Not so much like it's a kick in the balls to Solskjaer on the way out.
And he's in the team because he has a role to play and he can bring something to that role. So
when he goes on the pitch, he looks like he's being coached in terms of what's demanded of him.
Yeah, and if you play Donny in that middle, and you play someone left and someone right, that they can, if you look at Greenwood's obviously a left footer. He obviously comes inside. Let's play him on the left. Let's say to him, listen, I don't want you to get shots off. I want you to get balls in the box. You play Greenwood and Sancho on the opposite sides. So rather than them tucking in, they go wide, right? And then you have maybe Ronaldo there that can get the ball. You've got Donny in the centre who starts getting the balls into the boys' feet that they can start going at guys. Because we know the two boys can go boy lads, like they're not there at times. You play maybe Rashford in behind Ronaldo, where he likes picking the ball up because we know he likes driving with the ball at his feet. He can get challenges made all the time. He can win free kicks. You have Ronaldo and him taking free kicks. You have those little side balls. There's a lot of options there. But don't just go with the status quo and don't just say, well, I'm going to play this team and hopefully things are going to get better because I'm playing it. Give them a set of tactics and a set of beliefs and a set of guidelines and go, listen, go and play. They're footballers. Go and play, Yeah,
you don't want to be going out against a Villarreal and essentially against Unai Emery and expecting to get through that match on the basis of an interim manager's bounce, which they're way too clever for that. You know what I mean? And way too drilled and way too tactical. So I think for Carrick and McKenna and Fletcher and all these guys who are coercing on this, they need to sit down and have a good think about what their expectation is of where they see United going. And if that means you kind of try something tomorrow night and it doesn't work, well, at least you've tried something. I mean, don't go out there tomorrow night with the usual Lindelof, Maguire, Fred, McTominay and all these guys. Go out there and put a bit of structure to the talent that you have there and go and have a go. And if it falls on its face, then you can turn around and say, you can put your hand up and say, well, then maybe Ollie was kind of right. And there is a coaching issue or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Let's see how it pans out. But let's bit of bravery.
Just because it doesn't work initially doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to work.
That it won't.
I would say, and I say this to the kids, obviously, that I coach all the time. I said, the first time you got to get into the position. You won't make it, but get there. The second time you get into position, you'll get a little bit closer, but you probably won't make it again. But the third time you get into that position, you'll make it. And then you'll go forward with a confidence that I know if I get to that position, I can make this shot and I can achieve this goal.
Yeah.
But you have to get into the position first because it's not going to happen without you doing the first part of the process, Yeah.
Well, listen, pleasure having you on as always. This has been your Monday mashup that we bring you on the Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube. Audio version show available on Spotify. It's been an interesting show, but it's been a heck of an interesting weekend for football. Probably not a surprise with what unloaded, but the manner in which it all unloaded was kind of strange enough, all right. Pleasure having you on, Darren, as always. Cheers, pal.